right, how you feeling?
Emotional. Gosh, vulnerability is so rough, man. I know as a kid, I was always telling my mom, I just can't wait to grow up. I can't wait to be an adult one day. I can't wait to experience all the parties and all the fun that everybody experiences in their teenage years. And I soon later learned that I would have a completely different teenagehood than a lot of other people that were around me. When I was 15 years old, I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder. I believe that a lot of that had to do with the fact that I suffered extreme bullying. And this was the kind of bullying that you couldn't escape. It was in person, it was also online, and it was one of those things that just felt like it was never going to end. It almost felt like it didn't matter what I did, but it would never be enough to get through this phase of my life. And I believe that being so young at this age, it was a very hard concept to grasp. It was something that I don't wish on anybody to go through. It started in a classroom, and then from a classroom, it would become, a physical attack, whether it was on campus or off campus. And then from there, it would turn into going home and still having to face this bullying on social media. This cycle that I was stuck in, I believe, played a very big role in the depression that I was diagnosed with, because it was just so lonely. I always used to wonder what it would feel like to have friends and to have good friends. I think that I had a very high social media presence in high school, and I believe that when I was in high school, that having a high social media presence was like the in thing. It was something that everybody wanted, and most times I would find out that a lot of the people that I believed were my friends were not actually my friends because they wanted to be my friends, but more so they wanted to be my friend because they wanted to be associated with me because I had all these Instagram followers, or because I had all these Musical.ly followers, which is an app that is long gone, but was similar to TikTok. I wouldn't say that it was something that I completely asked for. It was more so something that just happened. I think sometimes we just post the video online and we don't expect this video to blow up in a certain way, and sometimes it does, and then we realize, oh my gosh, it's too late because we've already become known from the video that was posted, and people would remember. When I was a freshman in high school, I had a best friend, and I told her everything. I told her all the things that, made me scared, all the things that, made me happy. And just having that one solid person to be in my life, especially facing a lot of torment at such a young age, but she made me feel safe. I felt very safe around her. And there was one time where, I was walking home from school, and as I was walking home from school and I get closer to my house, these girls come around the corner. The girl that I thought was my best friend was standing behind them. She basically told these girls that I was spreading a rumor about them. And so they had come over there to, beat on me because of what they had heard. I would say that that was the first time that I was actually devastated by experiencing what it felt to have, a fake friend. I just couldn't trust people around me because it wasn't just her that would do something like that to me, but it would be other people. There was a time when I was in high school and there were these group of girls sitting behind me and a few boys sitting on the right side of me. I remember that they were playing a video that I posted. The girls that were sitting behind me were mocking me with the video, and then the boys on the side asking me if I think I'm better than people, and just all these toxic statements. And I remember thinking, what did I ever do so wrong to anybody? It's getting hard to talk about this.
If you need to take a break, let me know.
No, I need to like push through it and find it, you know?
Yeah.
I was very lonely. You know, I ate lunch alone. I remember sitting in a school bathroom, and every time I heard somebody walk in the bathroom, I would put my feet up purposely. And that was because I didn't want anybody to know that, you know, I was hiding in the bathroom. I could still remember the sound of a flushing toilet constantly, the sound of people coming in there with their friends and giggling, and me just sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want to be here. You know, I'm so depressed. I wonder what it feels like for these people to be so happy. I was so envious of others, not because, you know, I wanted to be hateful, but I was just so envious of how happy people were around me. Sometimes I would walk home from school and I would have to change the routes that I would walk home, because if I didn't change the routes that I would walk home, then I would encounter people who were trying to pick on me or people that were making fun of me. I purposely would go around the bus stop. Sometimes I would go through the park. Other times I would go completely around the park. And sometimes I would just go all the way around the perimeter before I could get to my house, because I didn't want anybody to follow me and, you know, jump me as a group. And I just didn't want to be picked on because it was already being picked on in classes. There was a point in high school where the bullying was so bad for me that a security guard would walk with me to class because I couldn't escape people. And it was so embarrassing to have, you know, a security guard follow me around. And I don't think it did anything for the bullying, because I remember that I would pass people and they would laugh and they would, you know, start spreading rumors again about, you know, how I was so scared. And honestly, the truth was that I was scared. I wanted to be left alone. I wanted to know, you know, what did I ever do wrong to people? I wanted to understand what it felt like to be, you know, a happy teenager. But overall, I mean, I was scared. I think it's understandable for anybody to be scared when they're feeling tormented by people around them constantly. Every time my followers would jump up, I would already predict that somebody had blasted me on Twitter, somebody had blasted me on Snapchat, somebody had said something horrible about me on social media. And I was correct most of the time, because that's exactly what would happen, is that people would take my posts or they would take the musicallys I made. I basically became like the joke of the town. It was just a funny thing to people to just constantly pick on me and to just constantly torment me. I think the thing that really pushed me over the edge was the specific tweet that I saw, and that was the moment where I decided that I didn't want to deal with any of this anymore, and that it would just be better, you know, to just be gone. There was a girl in my high school that had gone on Twitter and she had made a tweet from a picture that I have posted. And it was just, you know, it was just a regular picture of me with a quote that said, "Be the good in the world where there isn't any." And she had taken this post, screenshotted it, and then went on Twitter and said, "Well, I think you should kill yourself." That's such a harsh statement to make, especially to, you know, another person. And at first, I wasn't bothered by it. I just thought that it was a harmful statement. But eventually, I started to realize that it was funny to people that she had said that. It started with 10 retweets, and then it jumped to 20 retweets, and then it ended up at 100, and then it was 300, and then it went to 500. It literally had so much retweets from so many people, and not just in my school, but also, in other schools across Hawaii. Moanalua, Waipahu High School, Kapolei High School, Waianae High School, all these different schools, all these people that I've never met before. People that are just friends of friends that are reposting it. I was so known by so many people across the island, and that was the moment where I had thought to myself, well, maybe I shouldn't be here anymore. Maybe it is just better if I just go and leave everyone alone. That's what it felt like everyone wanted, and you just have to remember that this is another thing on top of all the other things that I had encountered before that, which was the hostility from sitting in a classroom and people sitting behind me and mocking me. And then the hostility of having to be afraid to walk home and then ending up in my home and being so afraid to just be in my own room and in my own space. And there was just never a safe space. And there was just, I could never escape the torment of the things around me. And it was just such a hard thing to accept at such a young age. I'm going to go. I had decided that I would not deal with this torment anymore, that I was done, that I was tired after all the years of fighting. And I felt like the only way out was to do the worst thing to myself. And, I never wanted to hurt myself. And I never thought about the consequences. I came from a family that loved me. I had siblings. But all of those things, when you're just at rock bottom, they just don't matter, because you're so gone in your head and you're so convinced on doing the worst thing to yourself. I had found this bottle of sleeping pills that was never opened, and it was above the refrigerator. I remember crying. I remember flipping my room apart. I remember sitting down and thinking of all the people that loved me, like my mom and my dad, and then thinking about, I hope they understand. That was a thought that went through my head a lot, was like, I hope they understand why I'm doing this, and I hope, they don't blame themselves for this. I took 36 of those pills. And I remember all I could think was, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die. And I remember being so scared. I think unless you've been close to death, you don't understand how scary it is. But I remember after doing what I did, thinking, oh my gosh, I'm actually gonna die. And so I called my mom on the phone, and I just called her because I wanted to tell my mom how much I loved her, because I was so scared, and I knew that what I had done was definitely going to, I was convinced that what I had done was going to be the end game. And I remember calling my mom, and I just remember crying on the phone and telling her that I was sorry and that I did something really wrong. And my mom was like, well, what did you do? Like, we could talk about it. She asked me if I was pregnant or if I did drugs, or, she just thought of all the worst things that I could have done, but that specific thing. And I just kept crying and saying that I was so sorry. I don't know what moment it was for my mom, but she realized that it was because I had tried to do that to myself. And I remember her screaming in my ear. And it was, gosh, it's, oh my God. It's like a scream that I don't know if I'll ever forget, because it was like a scream. I believe it's a scream of a mother who's like grieving the loss of a child. And I remember she screamed and she was running through the hallways of her job because I could hear my mom running. And she was telling her manager and her coworkers, like, I need to leave because my daughter is trying to kill herself. And then I just remember, like, as my mom had said that to me, that I could kind of feel my heart like slowing down. And then I got more scared. So I started crying again, even harder than I already was. And then I remember my mom, and she was telling me to hold on. And I remember that I was trying to, I was trying to hold on for my mom, because like I mentioned before, the truth is I didn't want to die. I just wanted to be accepted. I just wanted the pain to stop hurting. I just wanted to, I had to go to group therapy and one-to-one therapy and take psychiatric medicine like Lexapro to help me with the depression that I faced. And I finally had overcome that portion of my life. And then I had gone back to school and eventually graduated from high school. I actually have this picture of me hugging my little brother and crying, because it was such a tormentful place for me. And just being able to persevere through that and survive that attempt, I think that's very miraculous of a thing, because I really don't know how I did, but I did. When I graduated, I believed that there were other people out there that were suffering through the same thing. I believed that I couldn't have been, the only one who felt like the only way out was to do the worst thing to themselves. And I think that we all have our own struggles and our own problems, but if you know depression, you know that it's hard. Overcoming it is difficult, and healing is not a linear process. I decided that I would use the pain that I faced in my life as fuel to inspire others, to just instill hope and positivity into our community.
May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and in an effort to spread awareness, we're joined by Asianna Saragosa-Torres, the Youth and Peer Coordinator of NAMI Hawaii. Aloha, Asia. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, it's truly an honor to be here. Just being able to push myself forward during the dark time and using my pain as a way to not say that, I am a victim, but rather I am a fighter.
So this is a very important subject, very touchy. So can you tell me about your experience with suicide and as well as work with your suicide prevention?
This is Miss Latina Hawaii. Now I know you're a mental health activist. What made you get into that?
Tell me about how you got involved in volunteering.
Yeah, of course. At a young age, at the age of 15, I attempted to end my life. I felt that I had a lack of resources. And now that, I've survived from that suicide attempt, I do everything in my power to give back to the youth.
That's right. Ho'omaikai to Asianna Saragosa-Torres, our Miss Hawaii Volunteer 2025, who won top honors against 7 contestants in interview, talent, fitness, and on-stage question.
I'm very grateful for the things that I've been through because they have made me the person that I am today, and that is why I am Miss Hawaii Volunteer 2025. That is why now I have good friends, because I got to understand what it meant to truly have friends later and to truly appreciate the friends around me. I would never take my life now, and I'm so happy to be here today in front of you. And to the next person, I just want them to know that even though it's hard, it gets better. Even when it feels so dark and even when it feels so lonely, it's not the end, and you can persevere and you can push forward. And even when you feel like giving up, you have to find it in yourself to push yourself forward. And I know it's difficult because it's never an easy thing when we're going through something so difficult. We think this is the end and we can't get through this, but we can overcome. We go through things and they make us who we are. And that's how I see my story, is not as being, a victim, but being a survivor, being somebody who has pushed forward through dark times and not letting that define me, but letting that be the passion for all the things that I do today and all the things that, I continue to do. And I wish to do so much good for our community, and I wish to share my story with others, even if I have to share it 1,000 times.
Because at the end of the day, you can say, well, I did everything in my power to be the best person that I could be. And whatever they have against me is their own issue. But I'm stronger than whatever it is they're going to say about me.
I just want the next person to know that there's so much beauty in life, that you don't have to take your life, that depression can be healed, and that even though you have depression, that doesn't mean that you can't be successful one day. My name is Asianna Saragosa-Torres, and I have healed from depression. I am a survivor. I was Miss Eva Beach 2023. Miss Latina Hawaii 2024. I am the current reigning Miss Hawaii Volunteer 2025. I was also an honoree for the National Puerto Rican Day Parade in New York City. I have been granted the Senate Certificate of Recognition for my mental health efforts and advocacy here in the state of Hawaii. I've had the honor to be featured on all local news platforms to share my story: KHON2, Hawaii News Now, KITV4, and I am a radio DJ for 102.7 The Bomb. So this is, the beauty in surviving and pushing forward and finding resilience. And I call this rising above for our community and in our community. This is how we become a friend to one another. This is how we share our pains to be united. And this is how we break stigma and create more supportive environments as one.